Hi all, welcome to this latest video. This video is going to be on corner betting and I'm excited to do this video because corner betting, as some of you might know from my previous videos, blogs, YouTube, wherever it might be, is my favourite thing to bet on. It always has been. Since I got the bug years and years ago, corner betting I found as being the most exciting thing to bet on, and there's massive value there as well. Unfortunately, I don't get a chance to actually bet on it that often because my Bet365 account got grubbed about 5 years ago through corner betting. A bit of under 2.5, but mainly corner betting. I was just winning ridiculous amounts of money. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you'll win ridiculous amounts of money with this. And to be honest, my staking plan was terrible and I was putting too much on each bet, but I was getting some success in a short period of time. So I'm not going to be one of them people who says, you'll win hundreds of £1,000s, but at the time I did win a good amount of money in a short space of time, and they just sacked off my account. They started off by putting a limit on it, saying I could only place like bets of like 10 quid, the same as Sky Bet actually, and then eventually they just closed it. So I can't find anywhere else that offers the markets that Bet365 do on corners. They're by far the best markets in terms of the amount of games that they cover, and also the amount of corner brackets, the lines that they have. So you'll get sort of at the start of the match, you'll probably get over 7, over 8, over 9, over 10, over 11, over 12. Whereas you'll get some on William Hill that might have 3 lines. Betfair will have a couple, but there's nowhere quite like Bet365. So if you are going to follow this video, I'd suggest getting on Bet365 to do it, even though I hate them because they locked off my account. And it's painful for me doing this because you'll see in the examples that I give you, I haven't staked any money on it because I haven't got an account. So I'll show you what was happening, and I'm there willing the results to come in because I want to show you how it can work, and I want you to win, but it's killing me because I can't actually put the bet on. But so I'm going to show you some examples. So there's 2 ways of doing it. I favour the in-play trading or in-play betting for the corner markets, but you can also be successful with pre-match. The odds, you can probably get the same odds, but really you want to, I prefer being able to see how the game's progressing. So you can make a prediction before the game starts, much like with the draw betting and the under 2.5 betting. You can look at your research and your stats and say, I expect the game to be played in this way. Hence, I think there'll be corners or there won't be corners. But it could all go up in the air after 5 minutes. Someone could get sent off after 5 minutes, or it could just be a slow game for whatever reason. The game just doesn't pick up, there's no attacking intent, or somebody could get a really early goal, park the bus, and then you've only got one team attacking, and so you've got half the chance of the corners, if you know what I mean. Because these games really, you want not necessarily an even share. You'll normally get one team having more of the corners, but you want both teams to be able to get a couple. If you're relying on one team to get 11 corners, it's pretty rare. It happens, but it's pretty rare. So that's why I prefer in play. I prefer to let the game develop, and then it might change the attacking intent of one of the teams depending on the scoreline. But within play, I'll show you that later. But first we'll look at pre-match trading for the corner market. And this is done by sort of assessing the 2 teams, looking at what sort of formations they play, looking at what their attacking style is. If they play with 2 wingers and 2 big men up top like old-fashioned English strikers, then you're probably going to get some corners because they're going to be pumping balls into the box. Teams that score a lot of goals, that traditionally score a lot of goals and play wonderful football, might not always be the ones that get corners because they don't shoot as often. They tend to pass the ball into the net a little bit more. They don't whip the ball in, they'll look for more intricate passing around the edge of the box. So they might score a lot of goals, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get a lot of corners. So you want to put a bit of analysis into that. I'm not trying to over-egg the pudding. I'm not saying it's rocket science, but you do want to have a little look at that. Injuries and suspensions are key as well. If you've got, again, wingers or fullbacks, deep line fullbacks that will put crosses in from deep and they're injured. If you've got people who take long throws, I'm a Birmingham City fan. Yeah, going great at the moment. And we've got a player called Mark Roberts who can hold the ball into the box from anywhere. It's our most intricate play actually. If he's not playing, there's not going to be many balls going into the box. If he is playing, we won't score from him, but we might get the odd corner. So basically you're going to be looking at teams that are probably quite evenly matched as well. So they're both going to want to win the game. They're both going to feel they've got a chance, so they will both attack. If you've got one team parking the bus and the other team attacking, then you're probably not going to get as many corners. So we'll have a look at this little example of a game from earlier in the week in League 1 or 2. Sorry. You'll see in the clip Forest Green and this is one that I sent out to members to recommend for being over 10 corners before the game, so a pre-match one, and we'll look at how that went, and then I'll come back and look at the in-play after. Corners selections, and how we can make those, and an example of one that went particularly well the other day. They won't all go this well, but we'll take it. So when we're doing the pre-match corner selections, what my system will look for is various things, but we'll look at the previous corners and shots on target stats for the two teams that are playing. We'll want to see a decent amount of corners in the majority of games, so the average corner stats, but also shots on target stats. So shots on target obviously won't always result in a goal, and they won't always result in a corner. Sometimes they'll be saved, palmed away, held, but we don't want to look at just shots, because just shots aren't a great sort of indicator of the quality of the shooting. But shots on target will obviously lead to a corner more times than a shot off target. And the previous corner suggests that the teams are playing the sort of football that lead to corners. So playing with wingers perhaps, pumping balls into the box, having a lot of shots. It's similar to the expected goals. I do look at expected goals as well in some of the analysis for corners. It hasn't quite sort of worked as I would have hoped, but I need to tweak that a little bit. But it's a similar sort of thing. The quality of the shooting and the quality of the crossing, I guess, is what you want to be able to force corners. That links into the style of play and formation. So we'll be looking at whether teams play with wingers, whether they play intricate football to the edge of the box, as I mentioned before. That's likely to result in perhaps domination of possession and maybe a fair few sort of close range efforts, but maybe not as much as we'd like for the corner betting. So you won't be having pop shots and whipping crosses in necessarily when you play the sort of way that Man City do. Although don't go back and look at the stats, because sometimes Man City have a ridiculous amount of corners. I'm not saying it always fits. Motivation and attacking intent. This is pretty much basic. We want the teams to be actually having attacking intent. If both teams, which would very rarely happen, went out from the start and were happy to get a 0-0, you're not going to get shots, you're not going to get crosses. It's going to be a very dull game, and there's going to be questions asked, to be fair. But you need motivation and attacking intent. This is particularly prevalent in the in-play strategy later on in the video. But it's still, from the start, you want to make sure that one of the teams at least wants to win the game. And we'll show some attacking intent. Weather and injuries don't necessarily go together, but the weather will affect the style of play often, won't it? So we're looking more for the extreme weather. So in the winter, when the pitches are particularly boggy, you're not going to get wingers running to the byline and whipping crosses in. You might get more balls into the box, but will there be quality balls into the box, because it's not really the chosen tactic, and it's just sort of forced out of necessity. When it's boiling hot, you're not going to necessarily get people running around and taking on their men. They're going to be sort of preserving energy. The game's going to be a lot slower. Things like that. It's not that common, but it's something just to bear in the back of your mind. And injuries to the key players, to the sort of players that will be whipping the ball into the target man, to the player that plays the through balls that result in the shots on target. I'm not saying you should spend too much time sweating over this, but there are things when you're doing pre-match corners that it might be worth taking into account. So yeah, bear that in mind, and we'll have a look at an example of one that I gave out to the subscribers to the MathBet system earlier this week. So it was League 2, Forest Green versus Exeter, and this was from pre-match stats. So this was given out the night before. And bear in mind that the odds, I had a discussion with one of the members that it couldn't get on anywhere near 2.10. I think at the start of play it was 1.90. This was the night before where it was at 2.10 on Bet365. So yeah, that was the selection for over 10. And we'll see how it unfolded. I'm sorry for the grainy images. These were took on my phone as the game was progressing. And so yeah, they were a bit crap. Sorry about that. So Forest Green, so we're looking at after 42 minutes here, you can see I've highlighted the time, 42 minutes, and there's already been 11 corners, so the better's come in the first half, which is very unlikely. I'm not going to lie, this isn't something that I'm going to say is indicative of the system and that you should expect to get in and out this quickly, but amazing result. The stats said there'd be attacking play, the stats said there'd be corners, and there were 11 corners. I'm suspicious about the stats on Bet365 and on all of our sites, to be honest, to suggest there's no shots on target, but we've had 11 corners.
I'm not sure that that's accurate. I mean, there's been 10 off target, so it's it's possible, but anyway, that's by the by. Yeah, so 11 corners, and as you can see, yeah, at half time there were actually 12 corners, way over what I expected. I'm normally happy to, on a rule of thumb, to work on 5 corners in the first half, to have 6 in the second. If we're looking for over 10, normally I might go for 4 and 8. I might get involved at half time if there's 4, and I think there's a particularly good reason with all the other variables. But yeah, as you can see here, the line for was 2.10. That's what we got in. We got in at over 10, and by half time you could over 18 was 2.10. So I think that was a pretty successful effort. And this is the sort of thing that you can hopefully get involved in yourself. So right, we'll have a look at in-play trading next.
Right, so we've seen the pre-match game there that came in wonderfully by half-time. I couldn't have wished for better, to be honest. It's one of the first selections that I gave to the members of the MBM. I don't know what I call it, right? MBM draw. It's not just draws anymore. Draw and more sounds a bit cheesy, doesn't it? But anyway, the subscribers, that was one of the first corner bets that I gave out. Corner tips, and I was delighted. They don't all come in that easily. It was, you know, yeah, it worked brilliantly. In by half time. I don't know what the final corner count was, to be honest, because I've moved on to the next trade once that one had come in, so I don't actually know. But yeah, delighted, obviously. That was great. And then now we look at in-play trading. Now this is where it gets more exciting, more fun, if you like. As opposed to the pre-match trading, you're going very much on instinct. You can use the pre-match research, leave it alone and not place the pre-match bet. So you can do the pre-match research and say, I think there's going to be over 10 corners in this game, easy. Don't necessarily place that bet and wait until half time, wait until 50, 60 minutes, see what the corner counts are like, see how the game's panned out, see what the scoreline is. And then if it matches what you want the game to look like, then enter the market. And it might be that you'll see in this next example that I've got, you'll see that sometimes you'll get huge odds if you leave it a little bit longer, because if you've only got half an hour left, the market will drift and drift, and you'll sometimes get silly odds, especially if there's one team that's chasing the game. This is what's key with the in-play trading. If you've got one team that really is looking to get a goal, then you can expect 4 or 5 corners in the last sort of 15, 20 minutes sometimes. I often work towards thinking that I'll be happy if I need 3 in the last 10 minutes. If there's a game that someone's really chasing after, I won't cash out if I need 3 corners at 80 minutes. So we say last 10 minutes with VAR and stoppages, you're often getting about 14, 15 minutes at 80 minutes. So I'm happy if I need 3 corners there, I'll stay in, or I might enter the trade at 80 minutes. Because at 80 minutes, if you've got 7 corners, maybe 8 corners, and you want over 10, you might get odds of sort of 4.5 sometimes, and you can jump on that. And as soon as one corner is taken, the odds will move so quickly. You can get in and out, so you can trade it. Even though you might be on Bet365, so it's not a trading platform, you can effectively put a bet on and cash straight out, and you'll make a nice profit within the space of a few minutes, which you'll see in the next example. In the next example, we had odds of 11 or 10, and we ended up with it coming in. So I think that's something that you should be aware of, that it's definitely a place where you can get good odds on longer bets. So that didn't make no sense. I'm not re-recording it. Have a look at the in-play example and I'll come back later.
To the pre-match corners, so just a quick look at what we'll be sort of using as our variables. Motivation and attacking intent. As I mentioned with the pre-match, this is even more important with in-play, because you're going to be gauging how the game's been going, and you're going to be looking at the current score, what both teams are going to want out of the game from that point, and whether or not there's one team that's going to be particularly gunning for a goal, which will lead to more corners. If it's 1-1 at half time, or maybe even later at 60 or 70 minutes, both teams might want to take a draw. You need to decide whether they're going to be still attacking and going for the win, because if they're not, then you're not going to be getting the attacking intent and you're not going to be getting corners. So that's something you need to be really hot on when you're doing in-play. The strength of the attacking team. So if the favourite is winning 1-0 with 20 minutes left against a really poor underdog, then that's not necessarily going to lead to a lot of corners, is it? Because the attacking team isn't particularly proficient in front of goal. They're not going to break the opposition down necessarily, and it might be an easy 1-0 win. So really, in an ideal situation, you'll have the favourite who's behind. If you see a favourite behind with 20 minutes to go, that's when you want to start looking at the stats and see if you can get on a decent sort of line for the overs. So current corners and shots, yeah, these will be an indicator of how the game's been going so far and what sort of attacking intent there has been. If you're looking at 1-0 to the underdog even with 20 minutes left, but there's only been one shot on target between the 2 and 3 corners, it might suggest that that's just the way the game's going. It's a dead game. It's going to be won by the odd goal, and there's not going to be much going on in it. And you do get games like that, so you can't guarantee that just because there's a team that has attacking intent in theory, so then the manager's going to want them to have attacking intent. They're going to be sent out with instructions to attack, but it just hasn't happened in the game sometimes. And so you've got to judge whether you think that the current corners and shots back up what you would like them to. And predicting goal reactions, that's something that's important as well. So if you're getting on, say if you're at 60 minutes, it's 0-0, and you think, right, both teams are going to go for this, but particularly the favourite is really going to go for it, the home favourite, and you think they're going to keep throwing the kitchen sink at you until they get a goal, and you need 5 more corners. If that goal comes a minute after you placed your bet, are they then going to shut up shop and completely park the bus and take a 1-0, not resulting in any corners, not resulting in any shots? And if so, are the opposition team strong enough to be able to make up for that by attacking themselves to try and get a point, to make up for the deficit of corners that you're going to get from the team you expected in the first place? So you need to think about these things, because otherwise you could put a bet on, use all the right variables and parameters and think, yeah, I think this is a good bet, and then within a minute it's dashed. If you do find yourself in that situation where you think in a minute it's dashed, then just cash out. Don't try and chase it, because what I've found quite often is that your instinct will be right in those cases and you're not going to get anywhere. So let's have a look at this example from earlier in the week. So this was Sassuolo versus Genoa, and this is a great example. I couldn't have asked for a better one, to be honest, when I was trying to find one to record for the video. You can see that it's 1-1 after 65 minutes. Sassuolo were the favourites, and there'd already been 5 corners in the game, and over 10 corners was at 11. Now, normally I'd think that, 25 minutes left, 11, that's a massive. I just thought that was a massive price. I mean, you still need quite a lot of corners, but both teams have shown that they can score clearly. So I think it was always going to be worth a punt at 11s. So we got on that, and I'll show you how it worked out. So that was 65 minutes. After 65 minutes and 29 seconds, there's another corner. So the 6th corner comes in, and I just want you to take a look at the odds and how they changed. It's gone down immediately from 11 to 5. So you could cash out straight away within 29 seconds for a decent profit. And that's what I mean about the swing in play corner betting. You can easily get in and out and make good money and move on to the next. But we left this one to run, and we'll see 65.29, so 6 corners, and then 66 minutes, 7 corners. Now we're down to 3.25, so you can see how quickly it's falling. I won't spend too long on this. I think you can probably see where this is going, can't you, without me doing it. 68 minutes, there's the 8th corner, and we're now down to 1.83. 69 minutes, we've already got 9 corners. We only got in just after the 60th minute, so within 9 minutes we've gone down from 11 to 1.28. So you think of the cash out there. If you wanted to be ultra safe and get out, then you've well and truly won there. And then, sorry, you've cropped the photos a bit too much this time. Current corner's 10, 76 minutes, and it's basically over. You can't even bet on over 10 anymore. The line has gone to 11, and then the actual 11th corner was on the 81st minute. So we were only in the market for 21 minutes, and we managed to win our bet that was placed at 11s. It doesn't get much better than that, really. I'm not saying they're all going to go like that, because they're certainly not, but if you use the correct criteria to select your bets, and you're prepared to cash out when it doesn't go your way, you can then use that money that you've saved on a potentially losing bet and you'll be able to find bets like this. So in conclusion, motivation is the key variable, the key factor to take into consideration when finding these in-play bets. Ideally both teams will be attacking. That's the perfect scenario. Check for clusters of corners. It's something that I did want to mention. You might see a game where you think, oh, there's been 7 corners already so far. I'll easily get over 10. There's 25 minutes left. Put a bet on, only to look back at the summary and realise that those 7 corners, 5 of them came in one cluster. So it was one attacking move, if you like, which can happen where a corner goes in, it gets headed out, a corner goes in, gets headed out, shot blocked, and it's one attacking movement but results in 5 corners. And obviously they all count towards the total, but it doesn't suggest the same amount of attacking play as 5 separate corners. So you just want to be aware of that. That's something that isn't mentioned very often. That's something you need to look out for when deciding whether there's enough attacking play. Don't just take it solely on the number of corners. And also being ready to cash out. If things aren't going your way, then cash out. But also if things are going your way, you might not really want to be in it till the end. You might want to, like we saw in the Sassuolo Genoa game, you might have wanted to cash out then after the first corner and make a nice tidy profit and move on within 30 seconds. So just be aware that if you're doing the in-play, it's not a bet and set and forget. You're going to want to keep an eye on it and actually affect the bet in whichever way you see fit to maximise your profits. Alright, thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you again soon.